Behold, he cometh with clouds, and every eye shall see him, and they also which pierced him, and all kindreds of the earth shall wail because of him. Even so.
Some who are tuning in just now from part 3 only may or may not have the words conspiracy theory in mind as they go along. If so, just go back and view parts 1 and 2 and you'll probably swallow those words and pass them out. In any case though, I want to address the term conspiracy theory very quickly because Richard, who I'll play again shortly, happens to mention it but doesn't expand. How many times have you heard the mainstream media dismiss certain points of view as conspiracy theory? Well, similarly to what was said in part 1, the reality is that the mainstream media tells us only what governments and corporations want us to hear. And so much of the time, it's others who are left with the task of trying to figure out what the real truth is, apart from Yahuah HaMashiach, of course. Bear in mind that people who control large parts of the world's wealth will take extreme measures to keep control. And one of the best ways to keep control is to label with the slur word conspiracy theory anything with potential to threaten their position. Now, a lot of the times, the people who are called conspiracy theorists usually spend years consolidating information from lots of different sources, including sources from first-hand experiences or first-hand testimonies, if not one themselves. And then they critically think about the information that they've gathered and compare it to the reality that we live in, only to then be called a conspiracy theorist by either a puppet journalist who isn't allowed to go further than the script that they've been given, or by someone who just sits at home watching television or relies entirely on nothing but Google, if they can even be bothered to do that. And then these are the people who will call you crazy. Don't get me wrong, for general purposes, Google can be fantastic. But when it comes to, I suppose, social controversies, Google is known for omitting information or for covering things up. It was founded by Sergey Brin and Larry Page, both with Jewish connections, and one of Google's ex-employees, Zach Voorhees, of 8 years. He investigated the company to find its involvement in election interferences, blacklistings, acting improperly and illegally concerning search results, violating telecommunication laws, acting as unregistered lobbyists, breaching antitrust laws, interfering with content rankings and algorithms, biased search results and news, racketeering, collusion, conspiracy, and also censorship. His words were, Google sculpts the information landscape and determines what is to be fake news. Now, isn't that something? Just remember, the definition of conspiracy includes a secret plan or a plot to do something harmful or unlawful. And when there is factual evidence in support of a conspiracy, it is no longer a theory, it's a reality.
And what's really happening here, the core of everything, if you're a conspiracy theorist like I am, looking into all this dark stuff and willing to take an open look and look at the evidence and sort through everything, that might be paranoia and not true and things that have no evidence, to sorting it out and finding what apparently is true. And then you look at everything that's coming against us from these poison chemtrails.
Did you know that chemtrails actually exist?
Wait, what?
Yes, there are aircraft that were specifically built to spray chemicals, and the pilots even get paid per spraying application. Don't believe it? Then look what we have here. It's the all-famous AT-AO2 air tractor built in the USA and comes, if ordered, with a chemical spraying applicator fitted at the trailing edge of its wing and then flies at very low levels over crop fields to kill pesticides. It sprays chemicals from the trailing edge of the wing. There you have your chemtrails.
And following on from what the pilot was just saying, we can see here that chemtrails are not only sprayed at low levels on the ground for crops, Concerned biologists, doctors, pilots, neurologists, and also industry technicians say that nanoparticles of barium, strontium, and aluminium are being sprayed into the air, which suppress the immune system and cause respiratory problems and neurological disorders like Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, and autism, which have all largely risen over the years. Chemtrails also damage ecosystems, insect life, and plant life. Nanoparticles also get absorbed through the roots of trees and cause forest fires to burn hotter. It's government organizations like the Air Force, oceanic and atmospheric associations, and scientific foundations who are owned by elites who are behind chemtrailing. Before 1996, it wasn't even a matter of concern. But now, one moment the sky will be blue and clear, and the next you'll look up to find it crisscrossed with chemtrails. And we know it's not normal because standard vapor trails dissipate quickly, within minutes. Chemtrails, on the other hand, they hang around for much, much longer and expand across the skies. And it's not just people in some organizations working for the wicked who are responsible for chemtrailing. In other words, chemtrailing also gets carried out not only in traditional aircraft, but also in your not so traditional aircraft, as you'll soon see.
So when you look in the sky and you see those streaks across the sky, it's not just condensation coming out the back, and they're spraying us with something. I'll show the pictures here. You can see they're actually doing this. They call it geoengineering. Other people have said they're spraying aluminum, God knows what else, nanoparticles, who knows. It doesn't make sense because, wait, my kids might be breathing this stuff. Women who are the wives of these men, even if they're in top military positions, it doesn't make sense. That's why I concluded early on, this is being done by someone who hates us. That's not us. It's these reptilians, or as the Bible calls them, serpents.
Look what's coming out of the back of it in color. 5 separate gases coming out of this reptilian tanker, dropping 5 gases at 300 feet. You're smoking their gas today because they drop this gas only on technically advancing communities on the planet. Okay? Every 4 to 6 weeks. So you could be getting it today. Not 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. They didn't see it because everybody's minds are controlled to not see it, just like a stealth system. So the commander of this squadron made sure that that stealth was turned on. He forgot to turn on the stealth that prevents the camera from photographing it. The reason you don't see these, they're flying all over us. There's hundreds of them. There's thousands of them every single day on your planet. They're dropping the gas. So your mind is being controlled, and you don't function normally, or how you should function. We are being mind controlled, not for the last couple of weeks, but for thousands of years.
I don't know what type of gases these reptilian serpent tankers are dropping on people, but concerning the whole mind control element, there does seem to be some truth to this, especially when it concerns electromagnetic fields, or EMFs. Bear with me just for a moment. Now, the human body is a conductor of electricity. You can prove this by holding one end of a multimeter and connecting the other end into the ground. And depending on where you're standing, your body's electrical voltage will change. If you're standing near any power lines or other types of man-made signals, electrical voltage in the body will increase, telling us that cells in the body are capable of conducting electricity. Now, strontium is a soft silver, white or yellowish metal, and when exposed to the air, it forms oxide layers. Aluminium is another metallic element that can also form layers of oxide in the air. Barium is a soft silvery metal, and when exposed to the air, similarly to the other metals, it can be attacked by natural agents like water or oxygen, which can lead to its partial or complete dissolution, deterioration or weakening. Now remember, of course, that when the nanoparticles of these metals become airborne through, for example, chemtrailing, tests show that they become detectable in the environment and on people. Now, as individual cells of the human body are electrical in nature, when you soak human cells with metallic compounds, it makes them more sensitive to man-made signals that are within range. Now, High Frequency Active Oral Research Program /HARP is a semi-secret project in Alaska. It zaps the upper atmosphere with an electromagnetic beam, which sends electromagnetic waves bouncing back to the Earth, penetrating everything, which can disrupt the chemical structures of tissues and actually change the electric current in the body, which can lead into domains of remote influence, electromagnetic telepathy, and even mind control. Now, how many other man-made signals have been created and are out there that we may or may not know of? Regardless, there is indeed evidence pointing to the fact that we are being electronically influenced, suppressed, and subjugated to perhaps turn a blind eye, or to be dumbed down. And so I suppose the serpent really is the prince of the power of the air, and in more than a few ways. His influence is detected pretty much everywhere on Earth, and not just in government, as we've already found out, or in its departments like, for example, the United Nations World Health Organization, but the serpent's influence is also within the churches.
The Roman bath, England, notice the serpent symbol. The serpent is the life giver. You find it in Egypt, you find it in Hinduism, everywhere you find the serpent. It is the most prominent symbol. There you have the Hydra, you find it everywhere. Would you find it in Catholicism? Of course. And the main crest of the Vatican has the dragon serpent on it. The greatest serpents in the world you will find on Bernini's canopy in Rome. It's interesting that St. Paul's Cathedral, which was a Protestant cathedral, has been totally rebuilt and now has a duplicate of Bernini's canopy inside it. And on this altar, the dragon on the papal crest in the Vatican Museum, Vatis means the diviner, Khan is the serpent. Vatican means the divining serpent. Dragon worship, that's what it is.
Dragon or serpent worship is exactly what has been taking shape on this earth since the beginning in Genesis. And concerning the Vatican, we'll see fully what Professor Walter J. Vief is referring to. The Hall of the Pontifical Audiences, also known as the Paul VI Audience Hall, is a building in Rome, in the Vatican City, named after Pope Paul VI. It gets used by the current Pope Francis, sometimes as an alternative to St. Peter's Square. From the outside of the audience hall, we can see that the building's architecture resembles the shape of a snake's head. You can see the eye there, and the panels on the roof resembling scales. Inside, the audience hall has also been built in the shape of a snake's head. Once again, we can see the eyes there, the scaly skin, and what resembles a mouth with two fangs. The statue on the stage is of Jesus, created by Pericles Fazzini, and completed in 1977, depicting Jesus resurrecting from a nuclear holocaust, which has nothing to do with the Bible whatsoever. In more recent years, some might recall Pope Francis implying that he, and so the Catholic Church, would be willing to baptize aliens, which again is of no will of Yahuah's whatsoever in the scriptures, but is more than likely connected to sightings and to general UFO influences at the Vatican.
April 2nd, 2005. Pope John Paul II, the second longest serving pope in history, dies. He is praised as being one of the most influential leaders in the 20th century. April 8th, at 6:03 a.m., hours before John Paul's funeral, an unidentified flying object is filmed by a security camera observing St. Peter's Basilica. Could this mysterious object be evidence of a connection between the Vatican and alien life? A connection that theorists and historians believe has existed since the creation of the Church. The possibility that this craft came to pay its respects to the Pope and his people is more likely than you think.
Among the most secret of secrets in the Catholic Church is there a belief in extraterrestrials.
In fact, possible ties between the Catholic faith and alien forms are nearly as old as the religion itself. Strange-looking craft begin to appear in Christian art as early as the 1400s.
Quite frequently, artists would put symbols in the sky, but in a couple of cases, they kind of looked like flying saucers.
One painting, the Madonna with San Giovannino, depicts the Lady Madonna in the foreground and San Giovannino in the background pointing up to the sky. And he sees a craft that is clearly visible in the painting.
In the Middle Ages and through the Renaissance, they would take events from the present and depict them in the paintings. These were real things that people saw in the sky.
In The Miracle of the Snow, you have a painting of Jesus and Mary above, and below it appears to be what could be described as a fleet of UFOs or flying saucers directly below them.
The Baptism of Christ, painted in 1710, shows what looks like a flying saucer beaming down toward Jesus. The Crucifixion features a pair of what look like UFOs. Are the objects captured in these works of art records of religious devotion, or evidence of the Church's connection to spacecraft, and perhaps even creatures from another world?
Now, I'm sorry, that's not a winged angel or a depiction of God. What was that 500 years ago? We don't know.
The discs, seen throughout the history of Christian art, are an identical match to recordings and reports of modern-day UFOs. Were these artists adding images they had seen or heard about from eyewitnesses? And when UFOs are so clearly seen throughout history, why has the Church denied their presence? Is the Vatican truly hiding knowledge of alien life?
It's very likely that some of the religious experiences that have been discussed and written about for centuries were in fact extraterrestrial in nature.
The Vatican Secret Archive is approximately 52 miles of shelving, we're told, and over 32,000 archives.
What could possibly be in there?
1977, U.S. President Jimmy Carter is one of the only presidents ever to claim to have seen a UFO. Carter intends to publicly reveal all the information the U.S. government has on alien existence. He asks the Library of Congress to reach out to all possible sources regarding UFO intelligence. But when the library's contacts reach out to the Vatican requesting disclosure of all files with evidence of alien life, the Vatican refuses. Twice. But the secrets hidden within the Vatican can't stay buried forever. Now, new evidence may prove the Vatican is hiding actual aliens from the public.
Here's a strange story. In 1998, there were excavations being done under the Vatican Library. And one of the workers on the excavation team found strange skulls. They were elongated, extended skulls. They looked like what you would think a gray alien skull would look like.
The oversized, slanted eye sockets, the relatively small nose and mouth, the dome-like cranium. The similarities between its structure and the heads of the gray alien, the ET life form most commonly described by witnesses, are obvious. But why are skulls allegedly under the Vatican? If these bones could talk, what stories would they tell?
After the discovery of those strange skulls, Pope John Paul and the Vatican military closed all access to the site. What is the Vatican hiding? And did those skulls make their way into the secret Vatican archives?
The Catholic Church has had 1,500 years in which they could have recovered alien bodies from their investigations into unexplained sightings. Could these skulls be the remnants of aliens who once lived in the Vatican?
The Vatican is built on the ruins of ancient Rome. And underneath the Vatican is what's known as a necropolis. A necropolis is a vast burial ground. So there could be skulls dating back not just to 2,000 years from the birth of Christ, but all the way dating back to the beginning of Rome.
Perhaps the conclusion was best put by a nun who stated, "Whatever those remains represent, there's a reason why the good fathers buried them there to be forgotten."
Pat, whose alien experiences, now this is the woman who had the 1954 family abduction in Indiana, followed by the military's arrival and sequestering and drugging and so on. Pat had had, throughout her alien encounters, a very religious atmosphere or overtone to these events, instrumented by the aliens. For instance, the first time there on the farm that the family was abducted, when Pat's grandmother began to, what we would say now, freak out and start praying to Jesus for help as these little grays came into the room, a blue beam of light came through the ceiling, just like in Star Trek, and Jesus popped out of it and said, in effect, "They're with me, it's okay." And as I'm very fond of saying, and I don't know why I like this so much, except it always gets me, I asked Pat what Jesus looked like, and she said, "Oh, he was beautiful. He was so awe-inspiring. He was blonde-haired and blue-eyed, and just beautiful." And I said, "Hey, Pat, look back at the New Testament. I don't think that's what Jesus probably looked like, historically speaking." And it went right over Pat's head, and she said, with tears of joy in her eyes, "Well, this one did." They knew how to push Pat's buttons. She was a very religious person. She was also told essentially that the aliens there with her were angels, and that their job was to prepare new bodies, as mentioned in the Bible, for the coming return of Jesus and the resurrection. When Jesus comes down with the legion of spacecraft to carry out this changeover, it was the aliens who are in charge of providing those new bodies. "You want to see yours, Pat?" they said. So this was wonderful. Pat is now assured that when the resurrection comes, she's got the vehicle for it.
Seus Lucifer matutinus inveniat, ille in quam Lucifer qui nescito casum, Christus filius tuus, qui regressus ab inferis, humano generis serenus iluxit, et tecum vivit et regnat in saecula saeculorum.
What you just saw was a ceremony at the Vatican from 2014 with blatant allegiance being shown to Lucifer and Jesus Christ being called his son, which could therefore only be some type of sick Freemasonic twist to the Catholic ideology. Tie that together also with strong UFO acknowledgement and acceptance from the Catholic Church, and satanic infiltration from the devil and his angels should be made quite clear. The serpent and his seed is also in the church, and have been for some time. It's not only Catholicism at the Vatican that openly pledges allegiance to Lucifer and dragon worship. This extends to cathedrals around the world. We see the Eye of Osiris, the Freemason and Illuminati symbol on St. Paul's and St. Peter's Cathedral in Goza, Russia. On the Kazan Cathedral in St. Petersburg, again in Russia. On the Baraku column of Holy Trinity in Prague, Czech Republic, in celebration of the Catholic Church. We see it on the Duomo di Santa Maria, meaning Holy Mary of Grace, a church in Milan, Italy. We see it on repair works at a Catholic church in Munich, Germany. It's on a cathedral in Helsinki, in Finland. It's on the Malaga Cathedral in Spain, and on many other cathedrals and churches around the world. One important thing to note about Catholicism especially is that all denominations of Christianity stem from it, whilst at the same time all operating under their own separate doctrines that all happen to depart away from what the word of Yahuah says in the Bible. So the consequence of this is satanic infiltration within all of its religious institutions. And furthermore, matter of fact, when I say all religious institutions, I mean all religious institutions have been satanically infiltrated. But right now the talk is of Catholicism, and the Mormons are one of the Catholic Church's many extensions, and in line with the theme of dragons and serpents, there have been some very interesting reptilian accounts coming from the Mormon denomination.
Do you know of any stories that tell connections between non-humans and Mormons?
Well, there's a lot of strange stuff that goes on underneath the Mormon temple. And nearby the Mormon temple, of course, is right in the heart of Salt Lake, and it has sub-basements upon sub-basements upon sub-basements. We've been in some of them. And it's been reported that right across, well, it's not been reported, it's a fact, that right across from the Mormon temple is a downtown urban mall. I forget the name of it. And in the basement of the mall, numerous times the cleaning people have seen large reptilian figures walking on two legs, scurrying through the basement of the mall. Also, one of the temples, actually the Seattle Bellevue Washington Temple, when it was being built, some Christian colleagues of mine snuck into when they were building the foundation of the temple and put Bibles underneath the main pylons of the temple. And they also put a little booklet called To Moroni with Love, which was one of the first and best anti-Mormon books ever written. And then they poured the concrete over the temple. So we used to joke about the fact that temple was the only Mormon temple that was built on the Word of God. Then, you see, you gotta realize temple dedication is a huge deal. The Mormon prophet himself flies in and prays this dedicatory prayer over the temple. And while he was doing that up on the hill overlooking the temple, there's all these pine trees. And hiding behind the pine trees were a dozen believers in Yeshua praying fiercely against the lying and deceitful spirits of Mormonism. So guess what happens? We found out later from several people who got born again that when people would go in, see, the Mormons believe that Almighty God himself walks in those temples. That's why they're so sacred. They believe that he's actually walking through the corridors, that he stays in the celestial room and visits his children that are there, and, on and on and on. And many people in Mormon temples have experiences where they see dead ancestors. Like they'll go in and be baptized for their dead grandmother or something, and then they'll see old granny hovering up there in the ceiling saying, "Oh, thank you for finally, baptizing me so I can join the one true church," that kind of thing. And of course all of these are demons. Well, so what was interesting about this Bellevue temple is that people would start seeing these horrible crocodile, reptilian-like figures running through the hallways. And it freaked several people out to the point they got born again. And what we believe is that the prayers and the presence of the Bibles underneath the foundation was sort of scrambling these, reptilians and demons or whatever they were from appearing as these benign relatives or as Heavenly Father or whatever. And so instead, the masks were being ripped off and they were being seen for what they really were.
The connection with Lucifer and the infatuation with dragons and serpents has concerned Europe for the past 2,000 years. And if paying attention whilst walking around London, UK, you'll see statues of dragons in a lot of prominent places. In the 17th and 18th centuries, the British, the French, the Germans, and other Europeans called their soldiers dragoons, and the British still do today, which is a word derived from dragon and traces back to Roman times. A people called the Sarmatians from the Black Sea region were mercenaries for the Roman army. They placed the image of a dragon as their representation, and the battle title for their soldiers was Draconius. Their body armor was made of small plates and tarnished green, giving an appearance of lizards, snakes, or dragons. To the Anglo-Saxons and far beyond, the influence of dragons on Europeans through the Sarmatians is today still represented by, as we've seen, the English and also the Welsh, as well as in other parts of Europe like Slovenia, Poland, Spain, Germany, Bulgaria, France, and other places where dragons are held in high esteem or tell of so-called myths of once having terrorized local communities. Historically, an infatuation with dragons, serpents, lizards, and snakes isn't limited to Europe only. It extends all over the world. Hindu religion and other Asian legends reference serpent gods and dragons that brought knowledge. They called them the Nagas, who could take on a reptilian/serpent and also a human form. The homes of these beings are said to be in large underground cities or civilizations, and under the Himalayas is said to be one of the locations. In Hindu teachings, the Nagas are also known for flying disc-shaped craft and for abducting, torturing, eating, and also interbreeding with humans, where royal families are the lineages said to be seeded especially. China's infatuation with dragons are quite commonly known. Their history says that humans were created by a half-human, half-dragon goddess called Nukua. In their ancient Chinese book called the Yi King, it says that dragons and humans used to live in peace and intermarried. It's said that a dragon fathered the first Chinese dynasty of emperors, and back then, emperors claiming dragon descent were expected to rule. Japanese emperors also claimed descent from dragons, and also have legends of serpents and dragons interbreeding with humans and producing reptile-human offspring. The Horyuji Temple, from around the 600 AD period, was a temple dedicated to Buddhism. And for some reason, this reptilian serpent statue was found there, as well as these drawings, clearly showing serpent-like beings capable of standing upright and moving as any human would. And is it me, or does this creature here not somewhat resemble the recorded shapeshifter from part 2? Anyway, there are many Japanese legends of shape-shifting dragon beings appearing as attractive men or women and walking into the lives of samurais, warlords, and people with credentials for genetic purposes, and then leaving, returning to caverns under the mountains or under the sea. In the Americas, books of the Mayans called Chilam Balam say that the first settlers of the Yucatan in Mexico were serpent people. It's said that a god figure called Itzamna took them across the sea, and that he could take on different forms. Decades ago, archaeological teams removed debris that was preserved by Mayan temple builders in Mexico, and they found these ornamental tablets showing Mayan contact with reptilian serpent beings. The former president of Mexico, Miguel de la Madrid, told Kathy O'Brien in the book Transformations of America that lizard-like aliens descended upon the Mayans, and that their pyramids, astronomical technology, and their sacrificing of virgins was inspired by lizard aliens. He said aliens interbred with Mayans to produce life forms that they could inhabit, and that they changed between human and lizard appearance. Apparently, Miguel himself also claimed to have Mayan serpent blood. Elsewhere in South America, in Peru, they have a reptilian serpent statue dedicated to an ancient reptilian god called Morup, and who they call the Native Americans also have legends saying that their people originated in a realm under the earth and were often driven out by reptilians or other non-humans.
Sinom asmodi at kaveye siwan. Pu'nawa sinom omi qatiheb ya. Te pumahaki masawe au iki, pa masaw yan matiwa.
And not just Masa, a serpent god called Bahilinkonga was also known for being worshipped among the Americans. And Hopi Indians especially, in the southwestern regions of America, say that their ancestors are serpent brothers. In many Native American traditions, the earth is seen as hollow, with several beings living within it. And also today, modern American traditions suggest similarities. Whistleblowers speak of secret government underground bases said to be responsible for the disappearances of many Americans, especially whose nation is amongst those most prolific for UAP sightings. Dulce, New Mexico in the United States has a secret underground base, not as especially well known as Area 51, but perhaps even more ominous, because it's suspected that it's here where many Nephilim are housed, with experiments taking place between the large company down there.
The first level of Dulce, the central hub here is security, which extends all the way down. It's the hub of these concentric ring circles. Each area is connected by corridors and passageways. Level 2, they strip you down and take all your personal clothing, they weigh your body, they take biometric scans of you and everything. So in case you're trying to smuggle something out, they know exactly what you ate, they know exactly how much you should weigh, they know if you have something in your stomach.
They're really taking it to extremes.
Well, you would have to with something like this. They're frightened that it would be discovered that humans were being experimented on for genetic research. Well, level 3, we have the computer bank area. This is where they contain all command, control, communications, and intelligence.
Level 3 doesn't sound very dark. When does it all start?
Well, it starts getting more interesting at level 4. Here's where they get some of the more exotic research. They've studied the human aura, all aspects of telepathy, hypnosis, dreams.
Guys, wait, hang on a second. Wait, are you talking about extraterrestrial visitors that are working with our government?
Both. They call level 6 Nightmare Hall. You have aliens experimenting on humans, humans experimenting on aliens. They feel that you can sacrifice the one for the many. There's nobody safe. This is where all the genetic experimentation is occurring, where they fuse animals and humans together.
John Lear showed me his drawings of the Costello photographs in which there were body parts in vats of morphed human beings in cages.
About 2 or 3 years ago, a mouse with a human ear growing out of its back. Do you remember seeing that?
I saw that.
Remember, the military-industrial corporate complex is actually about 30 to 40 years ahead of us. So that means that at the time when these came out, chances are they were successfully fusing humans and other animals together as a precursor to what we're seeing now. The human test subjects are housed in level 5, they're taken in, the experiments are done on level 6, then they're transported to level 7. This is the horrific area. Guards like Thomas said that they had the cages. They were told not to talk to anybody. These were half men, half other animals.
Who's doing these experiments?
Reptilian humanoid beings, the small greys.
And now, a deep breath and back up to the surface, where accounts of reptilian beings also prevail in Africa. And so what we're seeing here, overall, is that over many parts of the world, both historically and present, there are indeed accounts and sightings of literal serpent, dragon, reptile-like beings.
This is how a Chitauri looks like. It stands about 11 feet high. It is a very slender being which seems not to have a bone structure. Its fingers have no joints. They are more as if the bones in here were flexible. Some of the Chitauri have got 3 claws with a thumb. Some have got 6 claws with a thumb. And some of the Chitauris have got horns on their heads. Some have got ordinary heads without any horns on their heads. These are the lesser Chitauri. But the royal Chitauri have got a ring of sharp horns all around their heads. And the very high Chitauri, like their king, Mubaba Samahongo, they have got very long horns which grow this way. Not that way like a bull, but this way like certain antelopes. A warrior Chitauri has got eyes like a snake. These eyes are yellowish with split pupils and they glow in darkness. So if a warrior Chitauri, one of the lesser classes, is hiding in a cave, you can see its eyes burning. But a royal Chitauri has got 3 eyes. It's got the yellow eyes, which glow in a strange, almost ice-like way, like jewels, like certain types of yellow jewel. And then they have got an eye in the center of their foreheads, an eye which doesn't close up down like a normal eye does, but which closes from side to side and which opens this way.
The man speaking passed away some years ago. He was formerly into African spiritism and was himself abducted by beings, experimented on, had his semen extracted, and was also forced into a sexual union. Does that sound somewhat biblically familiar? He also said that African tribes have been finding greys in bushes for hundreds of years, right up to the present day, and that they are known as the tormentors. He said when they die in the open, they are quickly removed by government or by other beings in flying craft. But occasionally they've been found and removed by tribe peoples who went on to take them apart, only to find that the grey skin is a strange type of suit, covering up a scaly reptilian creature with reptile eyes. The general depictions he gave of some types of reptilian beings are similar to what we see in films and computer games, which is no coincidence because these images have been placed on the big screen deliberately to condition and prepare us for disclosure. An old Russian KGB source confirmed that high-ranking diplomats speak with certain media and give the green light to release depictions of beings which they already know to exist. Some of these beings exist physically as Nephilim, living mostly within the earth, underground, in caves or caverns, or high up in mountains, undoubtedly because their appearance at this time would be deemed unacceptable. Other Nephilim live openly among us and we wouldn't even know. In the days of Noah, they were men of infamy, and so today they would also have supernatural or at the very least advanced ability. Other beings are angelic, like Satan himself, walking about the earth, capable of taking on different forms as angels are fully able to do. As well as shapeshift, as the world would say, they can also alter their form, going from transparent or invisible to hazy, cloudy or blurred to seemingly fleshly. They are able to possess dense physical bodies, whether it be human or animal-like in form, and to exist in this dimension or realm and experience things which we are also able to experience. Their intelligence is far above ours, and they have developed technologies and flying craft which can also appear physically and also spiritually. And in some cases they are cloaked by what appear to be clouds, seemingly wanting to mimic the Most High, who through Yahuah HaMashiach will come with clouds but on a white horse with chariots of fire. Other beings are a cross between angelic and Nephilim. These would be non-physical spiritual entities existing on their own frequency, but also able to come through and influence or possess a host. As the Book of Enoch says, these are the spirits of the Nephilim that departed from their bodies when they died and assist in the oppression and corruption of society. Enoch chapter 15 and verse 8 reads, "The giants who have been born of spirit and of flesh shall be called upon earth evil spirits, and on earth shall be their habitation. Evil spirits shall proceed from their flesh, because they were created from above. From the holy watchers was their beginning and primary foundation. Evil spirits shall they be upon earth, and the spirits of the wicked shall they be called. The habitation of the spirits of heaven shall be in heaven, but upon earth shall be the habitation of terrestrial spirits who are born on earth." With the Bible primarily and other observations taken into account, behind the paranormal, the supernatural, the folklore, and all these so-called myths and legends of the past is the alternation of angelic beings or watchers, their Nephilim progeny, and the spirits that depart from the Nephilim. The powers of these individual entities are somewhat merged in with one another, but with limitations upon some, and they meddle in many aspects of life. Be it the disappearances of others, sometimes never to be found, or killing off their own accord, damaging property or causing general disturbances or injuries, or human sacrifices being required after visitations in exchange for power, or abductions for genetic and also other types of manipulation. And on occasion, areas are searched for specific metals and other types of materials.
These creatures make humans look like sweet little angels in heaven. Okay, that's how evil they are. Okay, much different set of morals than humans can even imagine that another sentient being can have, and there's a reason why they don't want us to even imagine that there are other sentient beings. That is why Satan and his serpents and the other non-humans that work for Satan want to keep a tight clamp down on all information of the world, whether it's bookstores, television, the internet. As we can see from this censorship now, it doesn't make any sense. But it's because they don't want this information getting out. They don't want more people finding out.
Finally, my brethren, be strong in Yahuah and in the power of his might. Put on the whole armor of Yah, that ye may be able to stand against the wiles of the devil. For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places. The great dragon, that old serpent called the devil and Satan, which deceives the whole world, him and his angels, under the guise of aliens, extraterrestrials, UFOs, and reptilians, amongst other beings, are behind the civilizations of the past and the present. And speaking of this present, it's fast coming to a close through predetermined judgment from Yahuah Almighty, who will allow individuals and the world at large to reap what it has sowed, which is the overall acceptance of the tenets of Freemasonry, and one of its most notable members, Albert Pike, who had it relayed to him in 1871 by a spirit, the idea of free world wars, whose latter consequences would lead to the disclosure of their god, Lucifer.
Even though I've known this for quite some time, I haven't considered it quite this way before. But my Israeli source that was revealing these things that you're talking about now, they would separate families, things like that. They would genocide the people. They'd take you to FEMA camps. He also talked about they would use tactical nukes on this nation. The only part he was not aware of was the incoming asteroids. But what's really interesting to think about, and I really should have pinpointed this even more accurately, the very good friend of his in Israel, He's an Israeli man, young man, about 36 years old. He owns one of the most advanced companies in the world that has been working on some type of genetic experiment things where they merged AI technology with the human genome. But here's what I was not honing in on, even though I've said it 1,000 times probably. This man told my friend that's in the intelligence field that he was working with entities with 1,000 plus IQ. 1,000 IQ. Aliens. Demons. Fallen angels. Do you realize that he is saying that the Israeli government is working with reptilians? I never quite took that perspective. I knew this all along, yes. I've always said this is what the Israeli government is doing. But that is an actual 100% proof right there that the elite of the Israeli government is involved with the reptilians. So you can imagine what our end will be, other than Jesus Christ himself rescuing us from Satan. Thank you.
As well as Freemasonry, he is also behind other religions, which are strategically placed to hide or distort Yahushua HaMashiach's death and resurrection, and him also being the son of Yahuah. Yahuah told the serpent from the beginning of human history that through the seed of the woman, from the lineage of Yasharah, would come his destroyer. And even before the beginning of human history, in fact, Yahushua HaMashiach was foreordained before the foundation of the world. And so since the beginning of our time, Satan has taken opportunity to distort history and his own destiny, and to lure people away from the word of Yahuah, because the earth has been given into his hand to do so. And so now, our battle is against rebellious angels, wicked spirits, hybrid Nephilim, the seed of Satan, all of whom to different extents are placed in headships and authorities. If you remember from the book of Enoch chapter 19, how the people of Noah's day were idolizing and making sacrifices unto devils who assumed different forms, well, from Corinthians we know that this is something that the nations are accustomed to doing. It reads, "What say I then? That the idol is anything, or that which is offered in sacrifice to idols is anything? But I say, that the things which the other nations sacrifice, they sacrifice to devils, and not to Yahuah. And I would not that you should have fellowship with devils." These people within secret societies and in other industries, resulting in the loss of their soul, are having fellowship with devils and sacrificing to devils. We know from the word that the earth is given into the hand of the wicked, and that he covers the faces or blinds the eyes of earth's rulers. In turn, these rulers, earth's judges, have judged it fair to set up wicked structures, and they are determined to destroy the earth through these structures. But Yahuah will not allow things to rest for much longer, and those currently in power know this, that their time is up. And Yahuah allowed Yehochanan to foresee that because of this, the nations were angry, and your wrath is come, and the time of the dead, that they should be judged, and that you should give reward unto your servants the prophets, and to the saints, and them that fear your name, small and great, and should destroy them which destroy the earth. And we can see their destroying of the earth right now, through the wars, the famines, unnecessary poverty and exploitation, the destroying of rainforests, natural weather cycles, land and oceanic ecosystems, the polluting of rivers and freshwater systems, the destroying of whole species. Last month it was announced that 1 in 6 species in Britain are on verge of extinction. The poisoning of not just the oceans, but also the atmosphere with deadly chemicals and radiation, the genetic modifying of the food, the use of artificial growth hormones and poisonous pesticides to the point where food supplies are contaminated with chemicals. And not just the foods, but even the soil is destroyed because genetically engineered plants must grow in soil with pesticides. And this generation continues as supposedly normal, deliberately miseducated in schools and universities, and disengaged from the reality of a spiritual battle, whilst being forced to go along with unsustainable banking ideologies and debt-based consumerism, whilst being inundated with promotions of homosexuality and sex outside of marriage, accommodating the influences of purposefully placed Hollywood actors and film and music producers and writers who promote and idolize near enough everything that is sin. There's a general, deliberate, poisonous competitiveness between people, races, and the sexes. Stealing and lying to get to the top is acceptable. Violence and crime at other people's expense is entertainment. Idolatry is everywhere. The worship of different gods and religions are deliberately encouraged to obscure the path to Yahuah, who said as his first commandment to have no other gods before him. And so, who runs the world? And that would be Satan, the adversary, who is the god of this world, who has also blinded the minds of them which believe not, lest the light of the glorious gospel of Hamashiach, who is the image of Yahuah, should shine onto them. The dragon, that old serpent called the devil and Satan, who told Yahushua that the power and glory of all the kingdoms are his to give to whoever he chooses. He has chosen his seed, who are on the verge of disclosing who their father is and who exactly they worship, and with all deceivableness of unrighteousness in them that perish, because they received not the love of the truth, that they might be saved. And for this cause Yah shall send them strong delusion, that they should believe a lie.
Up there, I saw a UFO, and it went down the river, turned right at the United Nations, turned left, and then down the river. It wasn't a helicopter, it wasn't a balloon, and it was so near.
And it looked what, sort of round, white, luminescent, and silent?
Silent, and it looked dark, like black or grey in the middle, and had white lights, just looked like light bulbs, you know? Just going off, on, off, on, off, on, blink, 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 round the bottom, and on top was a red light.
One of the greatest lies unfolding right now concerns fallen angels and other demonic beings masquerading as so-called aliens and other not-so-mythical creatures. And they are doing so, as the word says, with power, with great signs and great lying wonders and miracles, which have already deceived many elites and other serpent seeds. And these fallen angels, Nephilim, and other demonic beings will soon be disclosed and unleashed on this earth for a time. For though there be that are called Elohim, whether in heaven or in earth, as there be Elohim many, and lords many, but to us there is but one Yahuah, the Father, of whom are all things, and we in him, and one Yahuah Yahushua the Mashiach, by whom are all things, and we by him. And so, we, the followers of Yahuah through Yahushua HaMashiach, prepare and wait for that day when Yahuah will send HaMashiach and the heavens will be opened up. And behold, a white horse, and he that sat upon him was called Faithful and True, and in righteousness he does judge and make war. Yahuah is the true Elohim. He is the living Elohim and an everlasting King. At his wrath the earth shall tremble, and the nations shall not be able to abide his indignation. Thus shall ye say unto them, the Elohim who have not made the heavens and the earth, even they shall perish from the earth and from under these heavens. And it shall come to pass in that day that Yahuah shall punish the host of the high ones that are on high, and the kings of the earth upon the earth. The judgment, the eternal destiny awaiting the dragon, the serpent, his angels, and all demonic forces, along with the dragon's seed, who all together make up the host of the high ones that are on high, and the kings of the earth upon the earth. Their judgment and eternal destiny is final and fast approaching. As the word says, at the name of Yahushua, every knee should bow, of things in heaven, and things in earth, and things under the earth. Before that time, these things in and under the earth will have a king over them, who is the angel of the bottomless pit, whose name is Abaddon, otherwise known as Apollyon, spoken of in the book of Revelation. The biggest war in history is coming between two sides, Yahuah separating them as light and darkness, between the serpent and his seed and the gods that they worship, and Yahuah Almighty, the Elohim of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, who sent Yahushua HaMashiach as the pathway to the winning side. His words were, if you love me, keep my commandments, guard them, hold them dear to you like a light in this dark world, with Yahushua HaMashiach as your helper, advocate, and mediator. And Yahuah of peace shall bruise Satan under your feet shortly. The grace of our Adonai Yahushua HaMashiach be with you. Amen. And so, to the saints, endure these final stages of this age. Stand on the word of Yahuah and on his promises through the death and resurrection of his son Yahushua HaMashiach. Here is the patience of the saints. Here are they that guard the commandments of Yahuah and the belief of Yahushua. Until next time, all praises to the Most High Yahuah, and Shalom.